never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Before I started the video, I was thinking about how it's about time for me to shave my beard again, but at the same time, I'm kind of scared too, because my wife just cut it off for me about 2 months ago, and when it grew back, it had twice as much gray this time as it had last time. So I'm scared if I shave it again and it comes back with twice as much gray next time, I'm going to have a completely gray beard. And I don't want that, so I may just have to let it grow out and see if I can get me a Santa Claus beard going on. But anyway, if you're a wrestling fan and you have not heard, the WWE terminated Mandy Rose Wednesday. Now, of course, she's been NXT now for over a year, but she has been on Raw and SmackDown. So if you watch WWE, you know who Mandy Rose is. Any thoughts on that? Please feel free to let me know. A lot of people feel like she's getting kind of a unfair treatment. So if you have any thoughts on it, please feel free to let me know. Speaking of wrestling, I want to see everybody tonight at the historic Landmark Arena, 4246 Level Grove Road, Cornelia, Georgia, for NCW. It is the last NCW show of the year, and we're going to have a blindfold battle royal. And I know everybody is intrigued by wanting to know what a blindfold battle royal is. The only way to find out is to come out tonight to 4246 Level Grove Road, Cornelia, Georgia, for NCW. Also, a NCW Heavyweight Championship match between Marcus Adams and the NCW Heavyweight Champion Curtis Coleman. And tomorrow night, I'll be at GCW Georgia Championship Wrestling at 1200 Chivers Avenue. Tonight, NCW, doors open at 7 o'clock. Bell time will be 8 o'clock. Tomorrow night for GCW, doors open at 6 o'clock, and bell time will be 7 o'clock. So tonight, NCW, tomorrow night, GCW. But on to today's video. We're going to be talking about college football in today's video. I swear I always feel like there's more stuff that happens during the off season than there is stuff that actually happens during the season. Now, I know it's not actually the off season right now because bowl games start today, but everybody's played the regular season and everybody only has one game left. Unless you're in the playoffs, then you might have 2 games left if you win your first round playoff game. But it's downtime right now. There's just so much going on, and if you don't do at least a couple of these a week, you get really far behind. So today we're going to talk about some of the players who are transferring, who have found a new home. Now, last I checked on Tuesday, there's 1,300 players that have announced they are transferring. Now, since 2020, when the transfer portal really took off, 60% of these players that transfer never play again. And it's sad because you would think if you're going to leave your school, you should already have in mind where you're going to go to next. Otherwise, you're leaving a school because the team sucks, or you're leaving a school because the coach left, or you're leaving a school because you're not starting. Whatever the reason is, being a backup or being on a losing team is better than not being on any team at all. Now, there is a few situations where this happens, like Boston College quarterback Phil Jurkovec announced he was transferring, and the very next day he said he was going to Pittsburgh. So I think we all know that even before he announced he was transferring, he knew where he was going. You'd think more players would do that because I'm not going to leave the school I'm in and then just sit at home because you're not improving your draft stock by not playing at all. But 60% never play again. That's been since 2020. But surely to God, with 1,300 players transferring this year, the number won't be quite that high. But we have Jaheim Bell, who is transferring from South Carolina to Florida State. Now, Jaheim Bell came out of high school as a tight end, but South Carolina used him pretty much everywhere. He's played fullback, he's played running back, he's played tight end, he's played wide receiver. And now you got the Gamecock fans who are up in arms because you won 8 games this year. And I believe I heard on the radio yesterday that if they win their bowl game, it'll be only the 8th time in program history they've won 9 games in a season. So that tells you South Carolina's always been a mediocre football program. But you finally get to an 8-win season, a chance to win 9 games, and your OC leaves, and then Jaheim Bell, who is your best weapon on offense, he leaves, and then your best running back, Marshawn Lloyd, he's also transferring. Now, he has not said yet where he's going, but he's transferring. So as soon as the Gamecocks felt like they were turning the corner, now they feel like they're going backwards because you've lost your OC, your receiver, and your running back all in about a 2-week stretch. Charles Woods, a cornerback, is going from West Virginia to SMU. We have tight end Eric All, who is leaving Michigan and going to Iowa. He is following his teammate, Cade McNamara, who was the backup quarterback at Michigan, who is also transferring to Iowa. And then we have wide receiver Ollie Jennings. He's not going very far. He's transferring from Old Dominion to Virginia Tech. Graham Mertz was the quarterback at Wisconsin. Now, the rumor is he is going to Kentucky to take over for Kentucky, and that makes sense since their quarterback, Will Levis, is entering the NFL draft. But supposedly it's not official yet, but all signs are pointing toward Graham Mertz going to Kentucky. And then we have Florida State, who picked up a great tight end. Most people aren't going to know anything about him because of where he transfers from. But tight end Kyle Morlock is transferring from Shorter to Florida State. Now, there is 2 Shorters. There's a Shorter in Rome, Georgia, which is where Kyle Morlock is transferring from. But there's also a Shorter in Arkansas. But Kyle Morlock is coming from a Shorter University, which is in Rome, Georgia. I believe it's a Baptist school. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's a Baptist school located in Rome, Georgia. So Kyle Morlock transfers from there to Florida State, and it's not very far from Rome, Georgia to Tallahassee, Florida. And then we have a quarterback, Billy Wiles, who this past year was 4th string at Clemson. He is transferring to Southern Miss. Now, all signs from the Clemson camp point toward the team being really high on Billy Wiles, and he had a chance to go into next season as the backup behind Cade Klubnik, but he's transferring to Southern Miss. He may be their starting quarterback next season. And then we have Paul Tyson. And if that name sounds familiar, if memory serves, he is the either grandson, great grandson, or great great grandson of Paul Bear Bryant. But he used to be at Alabama. He's transferred some, and now all signs are leaning towards him going to Clemson to be the backup behind Cade Klubnik. He's pretty much spent his whole career as a backup. He has visited Clemson over the past couple of weeks. I don't think he'll mind continuing to be a backup. And Clemson needs that because even if they're going to dip into the transfer portal to get the positions they need, it's going to be hard to get a quarterback because most quarterbacks who are transferring because they're not starting. Well, if you go to Clemson, Cade Klubnik is the starter. So not many quarterbacks are going to want to transfer from a school where they're a backup to go to a school where they're a backup. But Paul Tyson doesn't mind being a backup, so for Clemson's sake, I hope he goes there. It's not official yet, but they say it's looking like Paul Tyson's going to go there. They need that because right now the only other two quarterbacks on Clemson's roster, one is there because he's a coach's son. The other one is there because he's a local kid that grew up in the area, and he's pretty much at Clemson because that was his team growing up, and he's on the roster as a quarterback. But if either one of those quarterbacks play next year, then Clemson's in trouble. But you go into the season with Cade Klubnik as your starting quarterback, what if he's not ready, or what if he gets hurt? You need an experienced backup quarterback. They've got a freshman that's highly, highly, highly sought after, supposed to be really, really good, that's fixing to sign, but is he going to be ready by first game next year? You don't know. So you need an experienced backup quarterback, so hopefully they'll get Paul Tyson. And a couple of coaching hires. One, I just absolutely 100% do not understand at all, and that is Chip Lindsey being hired as the new offensive coordinator at North Carolina. And I don't understand it. We know Phil Longo left North Carolina to go be the new OC at Wisconsin, but Chip Lindsey is from the Gus Malzahn coaching tree. And Gus Malzahn has always said he doesn't like quarterbacks that throw the ball downfield because the more you throw the ball downfield and the farther the ball goes downfield, the more chances you have of interception. So Gus Malzahn likes throwing the ball 7-8 yards downfield, maybe. He throws the ball 25 times a game, maybe. And he wants his quarterbacks to run 15, 20 times a game. Well, that's what Chip Lindsey does. But North Carolina's quarterback is Drake May. Drake May can run, but Drake May's only going to want to run about 5 or 6 times a game. And Drake May likes to throw the ball downfield. So with Drake May being a pocket quarterback, and you hire Chip Lindsey, who likes scrambling quarterbacks who run more than they throw, I don't understand this coaching hire at all. It absolutely makes no sense. I'm guessing that Mack Brown either had Chip Lindsey or a bunch of people with no experience, and he figured that hiring a coach with experience is better than a coach with no experience, but I don't understand this at all, especially when I read an article yesterday from one of the writers from the Chapel Hill area that said Drake May was in on the hiring process, and he was in the room, and he got to give his opinion on whether or not to hire Chip Lindsey. And apparently he was all for it, but hiring Chip Lindsey is bad enough already. But then you go ask a soon-to-be sophomore quarterback what he thinks. A few years back when Deshaun Watson was in Houston, he was asked about coaching hires, and Houston did what he wanted, and they went in the tank. So if it doesn't work in the NFL, it's sure not going to work in college. So if it's true that Mack Brown asked Drake May what he thought and brought him in the room for the hiring process, Mack Brown is a buffoon. He's dumber than I thought he was. It's one thing to ask Drake May, hey, would you like this hire? But to bring him in the room and ask his opinion and make him part of the hiring process, that is absolutely stupid. And the other one is kind of a guy that I feel sorry for, and that is Zach Arnett. He has been the Mississippi State defensive coordinator. He's now their new head coach, and everybody's up in arms about it because he's very, very young. He's not ready, but for Mississippi State, what else could they do? I mean, really, you think about it, how soon can you call other coaches when your coach just died? That would look really, really bad if your coach dies and the very next day you're calling other schools, other coaches, talk to them. It makes it look like you don't care anything at all about Mike Leach passing away. But then you've got early signing day coming up next week. You don't want to go into early signing day not having a head coach, especially when most of the players that are coming there because of Mike Leach. So now that you hired from within, most of them, if not all of them, may end up staying there. So I hope for Zach Arnett's case, he does a great job. But for the Bulldogs, I mean, honestly, really, truly, what else could you do? You can't go into signing day not having a head coach. And you would look absolutely pitiful and cold-hearted if your coach dies and the very next day you're calling other schools, say, hey, you want to come coach here? You ain't even giving yourself time to think about and come through the whole process of your last coach passing away. So for the Bulldogs, they really had no other choice. But Zach Arnett is not ready, so I hope they give him time because he's been their defensive coach, but I think he's only like 35, 36 years old. So he's going to need a couple of years because he hasn't even had one game. He was named the interim coach for the bowl game when Mike Leach first got ill this past Sunday, and now he's been named the permanent coach. So he has no coaching experience as a head coach whatsoever. So I hope it works out. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. And today's joke, boy, it's a dad joke. It might be the daddest of all dad jokes. When is a door not a door? When it's ajar. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.